Hey guys, Dana CardTech 710 here, and we're going to talk about NSCs or non-sporting cards. I'm actually not a fan of that name, but that's what they call them. I guess you got baseball, basketball, football, and hockey, and past that, everything's looped into a group called NSCs. And so NSCs are extremely broad. It can be shows, it can be movies, it could be um, collecting paraphernalia. And now with like Pokemon cards and like Magic the Gathering, it's sort of morphed into its own set. But not a lot of people think of it as legitimate collecting material because it can literally be anything. Like this is the 2018 Topps wrapper art of The Simpsons, and Simpsons was something that I loved growing up. The first 6 years, especially, were absolutely classics, and who'd have thought that something like this would be collectible? This one's actually really not, but those of you that are old enough to remember like Wacky Packages or like Garbage Pail Kids, those are actually, there's like pretty highly collectible. And if you get a copy of SMR from PSA, and if you look in the back, they actually have prices for the non-sporting cards. And it's pretty interesting reading. It's the thing about the non-sporting cards is a lot of times it's very difficult to get cards that are in really high grade because people get them and they literally flip through them, almost like a book. So the quality on the cards oftentimes just not intact, like they would like baseball cards or like football cards. But cards like this is the 1977 Topps Star Wars original set. I remember collecting these when I was a kid. Obviously, mine are long gone, so I actually bought this one. But this is the debut of Darth Vader in a PSA 9. And, I guess there's like a puzzle on the back. But, yeah, Star Wars is actually a really popular set. As is one of the, I think it's the second most expensive card in the set. This is the 77 Star Wars C3PO error in a PSA 9. And here's the regular card that's not the non-error, and see if you can see the difference. Give up? Well, if you look in the error, C3PO, you can see his C3PP right here. So they actually corrected it and someone out where basically they took the metal, whatever you want to call it, metal boner out of there. But literally collectors caught on to that, and this card happens to be pretty valuable. It's the second most valuable card in the set, so I just thought that was kind of cool. Me being immature, of course, I had to get the one with that would show like the android boner. Like many others, I was a Bruce Lee fan growing up, so Bruce Lee showed in a show during the 60s called The Green Hornet, and he played a character named Kato, who was the Green Hornet's sidekick. And this sticker here is Bruce Lee as Kato in a PSA 9. And I went to a card show a couple weeks ago, and you know that I picked up like the Three Stooges, namely the Curly. This is Adam West as the Batman from the Batman series. On non-sporting cards, usually the most valuable cards are the first card and the last card of every set. I'm assuming because it's a matter of condition, because sets like this were usually packed together and taped with a rubber band. So the condition on the first and the last cards of the set are always the most critical. So this is actually the 66 Topps Batman, and it's dubbed Batman, and this is actually card number 1. This set is actually proven to be pretty hard to find. I actually have shown this card before, which is the 2011 Panini Americana Ric Flair. It's not really worth anything because it's 2011. But when it comes to wrestling, this set here is the 82 Wrestling All-Stars. And Andre the Giant is the primary card, the most difficult card to get. And if you look in the SMR price guide, the number 1 card in pretty decent grade is pretty valuable. This one is actually really nice corners, decent centering, but there is a crease here. So I guess we'll find out when I send this to PSA. But yeah, card number 1. And here's a card I got for my dad. My dad, growing up, would oftentimes have control of the TV, and I would often question, why are we watching the Lone Ranger? And my dad said he grew up on it. And this is the 1940 Gum Inc. Lone Ranger, number 1. It's an SGC 1.5, but still, look at it. It's a very busy card. And it's titled as "A Silver Bullet Stops a Hanging." And it's got the little story here, but pretty neat. Like I said, it's just cards just for nostalgia purposes, not necessarily a whole lot of value, although high grades of this particular card are very valuable. This is just one I got literally on behalf of my dad. And boxing cards are also dubbed formerly as non-sporting cards, although now they're called multi-sport cards, and you would loop boxing, NASCAR, golf, any other sport other than the big four, other than baseball, basketball, football, and hockey, was basically labeled as multi-sport cards. Well, starting this month, for those of you that happen to have boxing cards, the SMR does include its own section now of pricing for boxing cards. So, like I said, it's an interesting reading if you take a look through it. For any of you that happen to have boxing cards, and I used to watch a lot of documentaries on boxing history. And this is the 1908 Ogden's Limited John L. Sullivan and a PSA 5. John L. Sullivan, for those that don't know, was the first really famous bare knuckle boxing champion before they used gloves, and they would box incredibly, like 22, 44 rounds, 75 rounds, and to think that it was bare knuckled. I mean, nowadays a ref will stop a fight whenever they see a fighter is dazed. They literally used to fight until they couldn't get up anymore. So, good looking card, cigarette card. It's got a little background story on there. This is something else. This is an absolutely gorgeous card. This is the 1910 T218 champions Jack Johnson. This is the face card. He has one where he's basically standing and posing to the side, but this is actual face in a PSA 6. This is from 1910. I mean, I wish my baseball cards were in this good a condition from 1910, but well-centered, pretty good corners, beautiful color. And it's from Mecca Cigarettes. If you ever watch or read about Jack Johnson, very interesting reading. He was kind of well before his time, because not only was he the first African-American heavyweight champion, he also lived a pretty well-publicized and very colorful lifestyle. I mean, he did things that were quite the scandal, and simply by him being himself. He was a true original that everyone credits Muhammad Ali for being such an original. This guy was really like I said, quite a celebrity. Very interesting reading. I mean, back then he used to marry white women, which was unheard of in the U.S. It wasn't that many years removed from slavery. He would definitely enjoy his money. He used to drive sports cars, which, back then were, shortly after the Model T, and he used to dress really nice, and he was pretty well educated, which also for African Americans for the time is kind of unheard of. So he really just did things his way, but really interesting reading if you ever read about this guy. And heavyweight champion for 13 years, by the way. And this is the 1948 Leaf Joe Louis. I love Leaf cards for baseball, and boxing has a really nice set from 1948. And the challenge is to get ones that are well-centered like this. But this is the Joe Louis in a PSA 5. It's got a little background on him. And I have some more coming in. Boxing especially is something that I'm taking a particular interest to because, like I said, I used to kind of read about boxing history, like old school boxing history, the days before Joe Louis and the days of Rocky Marciano and Jack Dempsey and guys like that. So it's kind of nice to see that PSA is kind of legitimizing the boxing hobby finally, because before you'd get a card but not really know what the market price was or what you were paying for. Was it a good price? Was it bad? But I think now that they're starting to chronicle the prices in SMR, I think it's finally gonna I think hopefully catch on. But it's going to be a nice, interesting sect in the meantime. Like I said, I've always enjoyed boxing history, so collecting the cards of players that I used to read about, I think is going to be, I'll be sharing those with you if you guys take an interest to this. So, well, that's pretty much it for now. Some movie cards, some comic cards, and like I said, non-sporting cards. Not many people collect them, but it definitely makes things fun, especially when it comes to like rebuying your childhood. Cards you used to remember, or shows and TV you used to remember when I was a kid. I remember buying cards like this in 7-Eleven, so it's really interesting to see them in this day and age and slabbed and now kind of chronicled in SMR. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this kind of video, but like, subscribe. I appreciate your comments. Until next time, thanks for watching.